I spoke with parents of a 15-year-old girl, Vivian, who was kidnapped on the way home from school one afternoon. The parents had earlier received a phone call demanding that they give one of their daughters to be married in the mosque. The parents waited for a phone call and a ransom request, and the call came. And when Vivian's mother answered the phone, she asked, "How much money do you want to return our daughter?" And the voice on the other end responded coldly, "We do not want your money, only to break your hearts." And a week later, her naked body was tossed from a car. She had been repeatedly and violently raped, and her body was mutilated. There's nothing political in that kind of violence. It's sheer demonic inhumanity. And it has scared the Christians. It's scaring them from Iraq. It's scaring them from Egypt. It's scaring them from Lebanon and everywhere else they exist, and Syria included. What could I say to the mother as she wept telling that story, breaking her heart once again? The UN is taking up your cause and the cause of the indigenous Assyrian minority in Iraq? The UN blinks and the minorities disappear. In fact, the representative of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees told our delegation in Jordan the refugee Christians actually should not complain because they have it so much better than the other groups. And the UNCHR was utterly shocked to discover that the Christian refugees in Jordan accused the staff of harboring a cultural bias against the Christian minority and discriminating against it. Again, the UN blinks. During the war in Lebanon last year, Hezbollah launched rocket attacks and bunkered themselves in Christian homes and villages, knowing full well that those places would be attacked and destroyed by Israeli forces, allowing the Israelis to cleanse the Christian population from South Lebanon. Today, there are 28 destroyed Christian villages. Will the UN rebuild those for the homeless, displaced Christians in South Lebanon? Of course not. Hezbollah consolidates its power. Where was the UN's unequivocal condemnation of Hezbollah for cynically cleansing these minorities from South Lebanon? It blinked. And where is the UN when 2 million black Christians and animists were murdered by Khartoum's popular Islamic Front's jihad against South Sudan? Where is the UN's real pressure and teeth on the Sudan government to stop its violent jihad against the black Muslims of Darfur? Why hasn't the UN taken up the cause of repatriating the tens of thousands of persons who were abducted from the south and who remain enslaved today in the north of Sudan? The government's own agency has documented at least 12,000 of those slaves. Why hasn't the UN initiated an internal tribunal to prosecute those in Nigeria who perpetrated genocides against the Igbo people in the Biafran War? When the UN blinks, minorities in the Middle East disappear. So why should the minorities have confidence in the Human Rights Council when some of the most egregious violators of those basic liberties guaranteed by the Declaration of Human Rights are its members? Saudi Arabia, a member, denies even the most basic rights of worship to over 1 million of its worker residents because they are not Muslim. Is there no shame? The UN seems to be operating under the premise that it succeeds when it acts in diplomatic in all things. And yet diplomacy, of course, as the ambassador said earlier, has been reduced to group conformity. But diplomacy that fails justice and common sense undermines the cause of peace. And when UN conferences seek to condemn Zionism as racism and then accuses those who condemn jihad as a racist concept to be hate mongers, it diminishes its own credibility. So minorities have lost more than their confidence in the UN. They've lost their trust in it. And diminished attention by the UN, diminishing the ethnic and religious minorities of the Middle East. Thank you.